Welcome back. Mr. President, would June 12th be something that perhaps, with hindsight, when you look at, you kind of maybe regret?
No, you will find that history will one day come and apportion various blames to various actors in the whole saga. There are a lot of people today in this country who supported what we did at the time we did.
What was the rationale behind the annulment?
You see, we discussed extensively about the security. We are worried about putting up a government that will not last long. And as a government,
what were the conditions that existed that raised those concerns?
There was the security problem. It was very dicey. And the only people who will tell you what could happen is those of us in government. Those of us, the practitioners of violence by our profession. We knew the nation was becoming there is a frustration in the society. And once this exists within the society, it provides a very fertile ground for either a coup d'etat or whatever.
But in the end, that is what happened, isn't it? Because after you left office...
So in the end, we were right. We speculated rightly.
Was it a plan?
No, it couldn't have been a plan, but it was thought of. You see, don't forget maybe the history. We lived in this country where there was speculation by prominent people, media, the worst civilian government is better than this contraption. Nigerians said all that sort of thing. That gives confidence to whoever wanted to take over government.
The reason why I asked whether it was planned is that you said you were worried about the possibility of a coup and you had other security concerns. Then you put an interim government in place. You do not retire General Abacha, a man who has been a central player in many successful coups in this country, and you leave him in charge of the army more or less. And so that's why we have to ask, was it a plan? Was it a plan for him to take over? When
we put on that interim government, we wanted to give it strength. We wanted to give it teeth so that whoever is there now had the belief that he has the military behind him.
It never crossed your mind that he had ambition to take the #1 job for himself?
And it never crossed my mind, quite honestly.
So when he executed this coup, what did you think?
It didn't come to me as a surprise because all of you in this country gave him the wherewithal to do it. I have always said a coup will always succeed if there is a frustration in the society. And that frustration was seen, which was orchestrated. At that period, if you remember, you hear statements like, coming from very prominent people, this contraption, that is what we put there,
the interim government.
This contraption, the worst civilian administration was better than this contraption. And those of us who think that way knew that if anything happened at that particular time, Nigerians will go on the street to welcome it. Nobody will say,
so why didn't you retire the late General Abacha? If you knew there were fertile ground and you had a coup maker, someone who's done it before again and again, and now presumably with ambition for the top job.
If you maintain the pressure you put on you maintain the pressure on the interim government and say, okay, let's give them a chance. Let's see them whether they will run an election in 6 months' time. Abacha would not have found it easy to stage a coup.
Yeah, given the fact that what Nigerians really wanted was the government they elected, and the government that you put together was some sort of transition government, why were you surprised that it lacked legitimacy the sort of legitimacy required for people to line up behind it?
I tell you what, before, when that contraption came about,
You're calling it a contraption yourself now, by the way.
No, I like the word.
Okay.
I'm very fond of that word. There hadn't been one single voice throughout this country, you can check it, that said, now look, let's take a chance. Let's be cool. Let's give it a chance. Let's see if it will work. Let's encourage them, let them do it, and then ask them to pack up. 6 months we would have done it.
No, they didn't have legitimacy, and I'm saying, why are you surprised they didn't get any support? Because they were not legitimate.
I was working on the creed.
They were neither soldiers, so you couldn't say it was a coup. But they were not elected civilians either.
I governed for 8 years using decree. I governed with decree. That your contraption was given a constitution, and that constitution was supported by a law. So as far as I'm concerned, it was not illegitimate. It was legitimately done as is done in the military governments all over the world.
You were away, obviously, when the Abacha coup took place. When you came back, did he get in touch?
We did discuss, say, look, what happened? And then he took his time to explain to me what actually happened. And I want to be a good team player, not a player who will try to truncate whatever was going on. But to be fair to him, he told me what happened.
So did you give him any advice as to how he should run his own regime and at what point he should hand back to civilians?
Well, those are things that I think he knew very well because he has been part and parcel of the administration for 8 years. He knows the principal political actors in the country, and he went straight away, started calling them, talking with them, explaining to them, trying to legitimize what he has done. And believe it or not, there are a lot of his supporters, politicians, who are supporting what he did because he talked to them.
Are you surprised at how, in the end, his whole government became this government that many felt was very repressive? In the end, he became known as perhaps someone who was one of the worst dictators Nigeria has ever had. Did it come as a surprise to you?
Yes and no. Yes, because people will see him as a military person. And secondly, he's a man of very limited words. He doesn't talk a lot. You can't predict him. This is what he's going to. But no, because he has worked with us, he participated, he worked with other people, and he knows what it is to run a government. He had the good knowledge of how a government should run, how a system should work, how a security of the country can be guaranteed, and so on. Those are things that you can't deny him those things.
Well, let us take a break. When we return, we discuss insecurity, Boko Haram, and the decision taken by President Babangida to make Nigeria a full member of the Organization of Islamic Countries, OIC. Don't go away.